The Masters is this week, and there is big money up for grabs over on DraftKings. So in this video, I'm going to break down everything you need to know to make some money playing the Masters over on DraftKings this week. I built lineups out in the Sims tools here at Stokastic. I've got my exposures on the screen, getting to give you guys a walkthrough of all the most pertinent information that I think is going to be necessary for you to know while you're building lineups. So do me a favor as you're watching this, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you do want to check out the packages that we have here at Stokastic, now is the time, because we are running an all-access promo. If you sign up with the promo code ALL, there's a link down below in the YouTube description box. Promo code ALL, $100 off any of our all-access packages. And this is a really hot time in the sports schedule. Not only is the Masters this week, but we've got UFC 314 this weekend. We've also got the NBA playoffs starting soon, NHL playoffs starting soon. So check this out. $100 off, promo code ALL. You get access to all of the data, all the Sims tools that we have on our site, and there are different levels to the different packages. Whichever one it is that you choose to sign up for, $100 off with that promo code ALL. And as far as PGA goes, I do have a $50,000 win using these tools for PGA DFS. So check them out. Try it for yourself, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. It should really help you to build PGA DFS lineups. And now I'm going to give you guys a little bit of an intro here into the slate, the players or the golfers I'm getting the most exposure to, and then also doing a run through of some of our ownership and player projections. But let's start here by looking at the highest projected golfers on the slate. And, no real surprise at the top end. We've got Scotty Scheffler as the highest projected golfer, followed by Rory McIlroy, then Colin Morikawa, Ludwig Åberg, Bryson DeChambeau, Jon Rahm. So in general, we're looking at our projections pretty in line with the pricing over on DraftKings. The golfers who are projected for the most fantasy points, they're also the most expensive golfers. Makes sense. No real massive surprises there. As far as ownership, this is what we have for chalk in our projections. We've got Rory and Scotty Scheffler as the two lone golfers pulling north of 20% ownership. Rory is slightly more popular than Scotty Scheffler. For what it's worth, through the Sims that I've ran here, I am slightly underweight to Scotty Scheffler, a little bit more underweight to Rory. But if you're looking to pay up for just one of these golfers, at least in our Sims, Scotty Scheffler showing up for me in about twice as many of my top 150 lineups as compared to Rory McIlroy. So with that in mind, if I'm just going to be rostering one of these guys, a little bit of lean towards Scotty Scheffler for myself. The next group of golfers here, handful of golfers that are projected for ownership in the teens, the ones who are north of 15% owned. We've got Colin Morikawa, we've got Jon Rahm, Corey Connors, Justin Thomas, Russell Henley, as well as Patrick Cantlay. So no real massive value options here, but if you are looking to save salary in that 7K range, Corey Connors, he is the chalk of the group, 17% projected ownership at $7,900, and that ownership looks more or less warranted. I've got him in 19% of my top lineups right now, so just slightly overweight to the field on Corey Connors. And then if we look at the next grouping of golfers in terms of ownership, we've got Shane Lowry, Sepp Straka, Bryson DeChambeau, Joaquin Niemann, Keegan Bradley, Sergio Garcia, and Tommy Fleetwood. All of those golfers also projected for ownership in the teens at 13% or higher. So that's what we have for the most popular projected golfers on the slate. Now let's see what our data shows in terms of golfers who we want to be getting to the most based on our simulations, and then also based on what some of that ownership is and the golfer projections. I also want to note that I did run simulations here for the Millie Maker contest, the $10 one over on DraftKings, which I'm going to give you guys out an offer that DraftKings is running here in a little bit that I think is a really advantageous one that you all should be taking advantage of. But ran this 25% to first, and then also ran it for a large field contest. And the reason 25% to first is because that's what gets paid out in the Millie Maker. It's a massive prize pool, $4 million in total prizes, $1 million to first, and $1 million, that's 25% of $4 million. So that's why I set this to 25% to first. Now, looking at some of the projections, or I should say the exposures that I have to the top golfers, one thing that's really interesting is really deviating from the chalk the Sims are for this week, where on the high end, I'm getting the most exposure to Åberg, as well as Bryson DeChambeau, Victor Hovland, Xander Schauffele. So my four most rostered golfers are all 9K or more expensive, and none of them are massively popular. Åberg only 8% owned, and if you look at the most expensive golfers for the week, he is by far the lowest owned of the pay-up options. Scotty Scheffler, and Rory McIlroy. Talked about them. Two most popular golfers on the slate. Both of them are over 20% owned. Morikawa just under 20% owned. Rahm 17% owned. We've got Bryson DeChambeau 13.5% owned. So you're getting single-digit ownership on Oberg. He did miss the cut at his, what was it? Yeah, last week we saw Oberg miss the cut, and I had a good amount of exposure to him. He ruined a bunch of my lineups. And as a result, it looks like there is a little bit of negative backlash from the public here, where there is fairly low ownership going to Oberg. And as a result, our Sims are looking at him as a pretty good buy low option. So I'm coming in way overweight to Oberg, coming in overweight to DeChambeau, Hovland, Schauffele as well. Scotty Scheffler, touched on it before. I have similar exposure to the field, just the slightest amount of underweight. And then Rory, pretty significantly underweight, where he's projected for the 25.4% ownership, most popular projected golfer on the slate, and he is only in 10% of my top lineup. So it's looking like from our Sims, one of the easiest ways to differentiate your lineups is just pay up for somebody different than who the field is paying up for. Now, obviously, if you're rostering Scotty Scheffler, it's going to be pretty hard to have another stud in that lineup, just considering that Scheffler is $12,400. But with that said, I do find it pretty easy to get to 20% of Scheffler and then still get a good amount of exposure to some of these other pay up options. Also, if you're building lineups instead of rostering Rory or Scheffler, with the salary savings you're getting from like DeChambeau, Hovland, Xander Schauffele, it's pretty viable to roster two of the guys in the 9K range and then fill in the rest of the lineup with some of the 7K options. The ones that are showing up the most in my lineups in that 7K range, Sepp Straka at $7,600. He's currently in 23% of my top lineups. If you're looking to go really cheap, JJ Spawn at $6,800. He's in 21% of my top lineups. And then we've also got Corey Connors, touched on him before. Looks like a warranted piece of chalk in our data. So slightly overweight to the field on Corey Connors. And then if you want to save a lot of money and be really contrarian, the number one punt dart throw from our data, that is Austin Eckroat, who I have in 16% of my top lineups, whereas he's only projected for 2% ownership. So saving money there while also getting myself a good amount of ownership relief and making a really contrarian lineup in some of the lineups that do contain Austin Eckroat. So if we look overall now in the leverage column, these are the golfers that I'm most overweight overall on the slate in my first run of Sims. Oberg, Hovland, DeChambeau, Schauffele, all guys we talked on so far. Same goes for Eckroat and JJ Spawn. So all of those golfers, I'm at least 12% overweight to the field on. And then a couple of other ones that are worth mentioning here. Joaquin Niemann, Will Zalatoris, Sepp Straka, and Matthew Fitzpatrick. These are some cheaper options, with Niemann being one exception. He's still a little bit more expensive. But some other guys that I'm also using for salary relief via the Sims here. Golfers that I'm underweight to the field to. These are the ones who our data is implying are most overweight, most overowned by the field. Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, Patrick Cantlay, Jon Rahm, and then some other ones also. Those are all ones who I'm at least 10% underweight to in my first run of Sims. Then we got Colin Morikawa, Keegan Bradley, Minwoo Lee. Minwoo Lee, a couple weeks ago, won his first career tournament, and as a result, looks like he's starting to see a little bit of a bump in ownership. Last night, Ben Raza and I did a live before lock show, and we've already seen Minwoo Lee's ownership come up a little bit from where it was at in our initial run. So could be somebody who gets even a little bit more popularity as we get even closer to lock later today. So that's an overview of everything that you need to know from our Sims, top projected golfers, top owned golfers, some leverage options as well. If you like this video, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. But one other piece of value that you guys should be aware about before we wrap up here, DraftKings is a great offer. Great offer for the Millie Maker. And it's something that you would be remiss if you do not take advantage of, because if you are, which this is going to apply to pretty much all of you, you're playing on DraftKings, doesn't matter if you're a new customer, doesn't matter if you're a returning customer, there's an opt-in. If you opt in, make a $10 deposit over on DraftKings, just $10, and you get a free chance to play for $1 million. All you have to do is download the DFS DraftKings Fantasy app if you haven't already, opt in, deposit $10, and that is all that you need to do to get yourself a $10 ticket to get a chance to win $1 million. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 887-889-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply, void where prohibited. Minimum $10 deposit required, one single-use $10 ticket rewarded for Fantasy Golf Millionaire contest that expires on April 10th at 7 a.m. See terms at DraftKings.com/promotions. This is sponsored by DraftKings.